Go.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Deep SEO podcast series. I'm Steve Grenzer, and with me is Doc Sheldon. And our guest today is Jim Christian.
Hello.
Oh, and today we're going to talk a little bit about conferences, what it takes to run a conference, and more specifically about the conference that Jim's putting on this year. So let's welcome you to the show.
Thanks. I appreciate it. It's always good to have some friends to talk to on what is it, Thursday? Thank God. I thought it was Tuesday again. It's always good to see you guys. Happy to be here and happy to talk about the DMO and some of the stuff that we're doing this year and into next year as well. So events are hot to trot right now and a rare commodity in our industry. So it's kind of interesting to be in this position right now.
Very much. So, one of the things that struck me about your conferences over some of these larger guys like MozCon and that, I like the smaller events. I stopped doing events years ago when I was in the jewelry industry. Those were fun because you weren't, you didn't have a room full of people who were the smartest guy in the room. Which is common in a lot of tech industry events, which is unfortunate. But one of the things I liked about the DMO's conferences was that they're smaller, they're more intimate, and apparently a lot more fun as long as everything's kept nice and moist.
This is true. I think, all of the events, it's really interesting. There's a lot of different flavors with events. You have something like a digital summit where it's kind of like pack everyone in, it's sardines, and you get a mismatch of different quality speakers. Some of the ones are great, and they're our friends and they do a great job. And then other ones are just kind of like, I don't really know why they're here talking. So there's those. And then, I was a huge fan and still am of MozCon. I think it's a great event. They do a great job over at Moz trying to get everything together. Some of the other shows like PubCon and SMX are still struggling to deal with COVID, and we are too to some degree. It's not necessarily the easiest thing to be a conference these days, but some of these challenges that we're working through right now are really kind of setting a foundation for not only our events in the future, but really creating a pathway for other events to come back. So from that perspective, we're really happy to run our events, even though they're a lot smaller. These larger shows tend to attract a lot of, you could call them sharks, I guess, but like name badge hunters, the ones that are just there to try to connect with people in 4 seconds or less. And for our event and our style of doing things, we tend to focus on real meaningful relationships. Like, you go to our event, you're not just going to hunt someone down by their badge. You're going to have like a really good conversation with them and in a nice atmosphere too. So we're not serving chicken nuggets and French fries, which is always great. We tend to err on the side of foodies and always like to pair that with a delicious red or white wine as well. So yeah, it's a little bit different for us.
Right. Well, one of the things that always appealed to me about the DMO thing was you were not focused on just filling a chair to hear somebody talk. You were trying to provide an experience.
Yeah.
And that was something that I saw as a likely arrival point for the new type of conference, because just going to fight to even get into the bar and fight to get into a restaurant at PubCon and all these different issues and wait for 4 elevator cars at the end of the show before you can go back up to your room. That kind of stuff is not appealing to most people. And certainly just badge hunting, no. So I thought that you had come up with an idea that is likely to be where a lot of future conferences, if they're successful, are going to end up going. And that's kind of what we tried to emulate as well with DeepSEOCon. Making it more of an experience.
It's hard. I think from the most part, so I was just remembering my time over at GoDaddy, right? So when I was originally at GoDaddy, like first year or two, it was just a regular office, and it was like you're here from 9 to 5, you get your lunch and you go. There's really no frills with it. And that's not a bad thing. But then, as time progressed, and I don't know if like people got pickier or whatever, but then they started like free food and free drinks. And then all of a sudden it was like beers on Fridays, and it became like a better office environment. And so one of the things that we really wanted to focus on with our events is to try to create a atmosphere that's conducive to people wanting to network. And so for us, we looked at some of the other events. I'll leave them nameless, but the serving of like nasty pizza and or chicken nuggets, which I am a fan of chicken nuggets, don't get me wrong, but like, if I'm paying $1,000 or $2,000 for an event, like I want a really nice meal. And I want all of my meals to be nice. And with some of these shows, I think the larger that they get, they have problems with quality. So like, as an example, one of them might be in some convention hall. Well, you're limited to the food that the convention hall's selling, right? So you can't really have what you want. Or if you do, it's going to be prohibitively expensive. And so we found a nice little home in Napa Valley. And, being that it is a mecca for both wine lovers and foodies, it really goes hand in hand with our vision. We've had pretty crazy stuff too. Every year we pretty much have the castle, the Castello di Amorosa, which is our kind of capstone dinner. Or we'll have falcons. We had falconry a couple years ago. So we're always trying to change things up and make it unique every single year, and then just make it like something where someone really wants to attend our shows. And, quite honestly, with our shows being capped at like 100 people, there's really only a few spots available every year. And, we could potentially make it a little bit bigger, but I don't think that we really want to, because we want to keep that intimacy level with our events.
Yeah, on the other extreme, I was at an Amazon event 5 years ago, 2,000 people in a hall. And when it came time for lunch, they went, "Good luck. There are restaurants here, 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 and here. We'll see you guys in an hour and a half." And it wasn't a cheap conference to attend either. And we wound up with speakers who would spend the first 3/4 of their talk talking about how they spent, $2 million and made $4 million in revenue. And it's like, wait, that's not a great return.
Yeah.
And then they spent the last third of their talk going, "This is why you should buy my stuff."
Yeah.
And it was the most obscene thing I had ever seen. I mean, it was far worse than anything I had been to in Vegas with CES or E3 or any of those.
Yeah.
Just terrifying.
It's unfortunate that they take that route. I mean, I understand why. First of all, we should just let everyone know. I'm not getting rich, and neither is anyone else putting these events on. Just wanted to let you know. I could go shopping in a thrift store right now with how much money I've made off of these shows. It's not a lot. And we always, every single show, we've done 7 shows now, 8 shows now. And every single one, the money just goes back into the next show, which is fine. I mean, we're not necessarily looking for a profit. We're looking for an experience for ourselves, obviously, and then also for other people too. It's like I have a really deep connection with wanting to promote events for our industry, and that comes from the standpoint of when I was over at GoDaddy and I had to figure things out running a international large e-commerce website. I needed help and I needed friends, and the conferences is really where I got those from. Hi, Jeff Preston. So, and others. It's one of those things where I got a lot of value out of it. And so for me to be able to give back, I think is probably the most important aspect of it. but yeah, no one I know in the conference industry is getting super rich, unless it's like some massive show like Traffic and Conversion where they're making $20 million a pop or whatever it is. So
Right.
yeah,
No, it's hard to run a conference out, as Doc and I found out horribly multiple times. The first one we had to do a last minute pivot because of COVID.
yeah,
And we were happy with how it turned out. We weren't thrilled, but at least we were able to get through it. And the last one, it was just like hit after hit after hit just kept coming.
yeah,
And I understand how there are people whose job is to help people like us put on conferences.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
You need that extra hand. And again, while you don't, attendees don't understand that in the cost of their ticket, those people aren't cheap, not the
yeah,
good ones.
Well,
And
and if the show is put on well, your attendees, if everything's going smoothly, they're gonna walk out thinking that was nicely done. It must have been easy,
yeah.
because all of those hiccups are invisible.
Yeah, the invisibility cloak is a real slippery slope to get used to. It's really, really rough for me every single year. I luckily, well, he's not here, TJ. TJ handles a majority of the logistics for our shows, and without him, it would be next to impossible to run one, if at all possible. And having someone who can help with the logistics while I dream up whatever the memory or the experience is going to be is really, really helpful for us to continue to do these shows. It's a really good blend of skills and skill sets. So he's tremendously helpful, although he's in Napa Valley right now. So we're not really talking because so but yeah, there is some things are changing. There is a lot of change coming to this industry, obviously with kind of the old guard leaving and new guard trying to scrap up to the top. You've got that aspect of it, and then you've got shows that will or won't come back. And where does that leave the industry? I know for us, we're not struggling, but I mean, it's definitely a challenge to get people to come to shows. I mean, we are a very small show. We're limited to 100 people for Napa, and I think we'll fill it, and we've filled over 100 people every single year. But some of the events that I've been talking to are at 50% capacity because people are still kind of weary about coming back with COVID around, and or just travel restrictions in general. Like their boss just won't let them travel because of COVID. So it is very challenging to kind of deal with this right now.
Yeah, and then when we our last conference that we had to cancel this year, we thought we had a brilliant idea. We ran it by some folks and the colleagues, and they thought it was a good idea. When we couldn't pay speakers, but we had we got one guy coming here from San Diego. He's going to drive across the border. Other guy's flying in from London. Okay,
Yeah,
we couldn't afford to pay the speakers, and we couldn't afford to pay the travel expenses when they're going to be so disparate like that. So we thought, okay, what we'll do is we'll make it a full ride for the speakers and make it all inclusive, their room, their meals, their bar, it's all inclusive. And then we ran it by the idea by some folks, what if we were to do this for everybody? And that's what we ended up going. Obviously that jacked the price up considerably, and that did exclude some potential attendees, I'm sure. But that ended up being a mistake. I think that was that, and the fact that we were doing it in Mexico, even though just 50 miles into the country, people have heard all sorts of horror stories about the cartel wars and beheaded bodies hanging from overpasses. Well, you get used to it,
yeah. I mean,
it's but after a while you stop noticing the things. If they don't hit your radio aerial, it's not a problem. But so we had a number of self-inflicted wounds there too.
yeah, we're trying to diversify. So the issue really is that there's multiple types of attendees that you would potentially want to hit. So as for an example, we have Napa, which is our regular capstone show every single year. And now we've started to do these masterminds where we'll pick a really cool or interesting location, and it'll be kind of like that all-inclusive experience. And it's a longer, if you want to call it a conference, but it's a longer experience. So it's like 3 to 4 days. And it's really built for either like an agency owner or someone who's been in the industry for 15, 20 years, someone who, doesn't necessarily want to meet a whole bunch of people, but wants to hang out with people of caliber and quality, so that they can really start to learn some of the more deeper, interesting facts that they want to, learn for either their own business or, for their in-house job. So these masterminds for us allow us way more creativity with what we're doing. So we had the one this last year in Maui, which was freaking phenomenal. And
moist.
Moist. We had moist banana bread. Thank you, Casey Marquis. Your contributions to the ride was generous, to say the least. But we went whale watching and snorkeling. We did some like beach stuff, yoga. It was just a lot of fun. And the people that were there had a great time. And again, we bring up the whole moist thing. No one understood what that meant. They had no clue what moist banana bread meant, and they were all hopping on the train of like moist this, moist that. And it was like the funniest thing to us, because it was something that like one bus shared. I don't remember how many people were in it, but I'm assuming like 15 people. And our bus almost broke down and ran out of gas, which was super sucky. But we stopped off at this roadside car where this guy was selling moist banana bread out of the trunk of his car with him and his wife. And we were just laughing because his marketers, like every single sign that he had leading up to his car in both direction said like moist banana bread, super moist banana bread, but moist was always in there. And it was like the funniest thing to us, because we were just like, who advertises like this? And so we had some spare time, and Casey's like, we need to stop off at this car and we need to buy as much moist banana bread as we can possibly handle. So I think he bought like 5 or 6 loaves. We opened most of it up into the car and then drove back down the volcano to go to dinner. But like those are, and I left Steve Weedman up at the top of the mountain. Sorry, Steve.
He found his way home.
Yeah, he eventually got back. It's fine. But there's inherent memories and really good memories that come from these events. And I think that at this point, would you rather go to an event where you get 2 drink tickets and you're in a mess of people, 500 people, 1,000 people, it doesn't really matter, but there's so many people there that you couldn't possibly meet all of them. And you're stuffed into a room or a location where, I don't know, it feels kind of like really stressful or a lot of anxiety for some people, where it's just like, I don't know who to meet and I don't know who to talk to. There's so many people. I'm just going to stand here until someone comes up to my table and starts talking to me. And that's really rough for a lot of people. And I think for our events, it's more like, hey, did you like try the falconry? Hey, did you like try this Pinot Noir? Or, hey, I can't wait to see you at the castle. This is going to be so much fun. We're dressing up for dinner. So there's all of these kind of experiential things that people get to do at our events. And for me, it's that's where the payoff comes, I guess, is the ability to have something where people really love coming back year over year. So long-winded explanation of it, but I still love it.
No, that is definitely awesome. A thought occurred to me. I was just thinking, I've experienced some really horrible instances in events. For example, one of my clients hosted an event, and the room above the conference room had a plumbing leak. Wound up with raw sewage dripping down into the conference room. And the hotel not only didn't seem to care much, but were basically, well, sorry about that. You'll just have to close down early and no refunds.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
that's
It was eventually taken care of by the person they hired to help them run the conference. But do you have any of those kind of weird horror stories of
oh
things that have happened? I mean, those are fun to me. I like those kinds of stories.
oh, I can tell you some horror stories. Let's go with like what's the worst one? The worst one I think was probably having to shut a show down. Because then it's all of that effort and time that you spent to try to create the event in the first place is just goes down the toilet. So for us, that was I think four 4 or 5 years ago, something like that. I love Key West too. We were supposed to have a conference in Key West, and we were all ready to go. It was going to be a little bit hot because I think it was like September, October was when we were supposed to have it. Maybe September. So we were ready to go. We've got, I think we almost had a full house at that point in time. And I was really getting excited because like Key West for me is like the poor man's Hawaii, and it is just littered with bars filled with good music and cheap drinks. And I'm all about that. So we were really getting excited. And then all of these hurricanes started to come through. And I was like, oh, why did we plan it during this time of year? Now I'm super stressed about these hurricanes, and like every single day there was like some new storm or whatever popping up in the Atlantic, and we were so jittered by that whole process. Turns out that one of the hurricanes turned into a Cat 5 and completely demolished everything in Key West, like 3 weeks before the event, maybe 4 weeks. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, let's see how much information we can actually get on the status of Key West, because it's either a sandbar now or everything survived. I don't know which one it's going to be. So we started to get some calls out to the people over there when they actually came back to their jobs, and it was just nothing but disaster. The airport was completely destroyed, shut down. There was no sewage, so you couldn't flush anything. The water had come up a foot into every single bar and restaurant in the place. What else? There was like a couple other things that were just really, really bad. So I think a couple weeks before the show happened, we decided to pull the plug, and it was gut wrenching to have to do that. But the reality is that we didn't want anyone coming to the show where they had to drive through, people trying to put their lives back together. We didn't feel that that was right. And or it would always have a stain or a shadow on the event too. So for us, it just was better off to just cancel it. And apparently never go back to Key West. So
at least not in September.
no, I'm game to try it again. I think it's a good location. It's a little bit challenging to get to, but the location is awesome.
Yeah.
We've had
April might work.
Yeah. We do the fantasy fest that they have down there too. It's pretty interesting. But there's been some other stuff like vendors messing up. The wine train was a huge train wreck. It's the wine train, but then apparently as you get closer to your date, the amount of wine that is on the train gets less and less as they try to screw you over. So there's stuff like that happens all the time. Or someone trips on a piece of equipment and it goes out. We try to have backups for everything, but luckily, and knock on wood, I have not had a single catastrophe happen at one of our shows. So as long as that keeps up to par, I think we'll be fine. But yeah, those disasters really suck, as you know.
Yep.
Yes. So where do you see, like, we're seeing a lot of hybrid events starting to pop up?
Yeah.
And I am very on the fence personally about hybrid events from a host point of view. From an attendee point of view, I love them because it's hard for me to get away for an extended period of time. But from a host point of view, for me, I look at it as, you've got all these people paying to be here, yet got other people who aren't paying anywhere near as much sitting at home wanting the same or similar experience, and wondering how much that keeps people from actually attending.
Yeah, it's challenging. I'll give you like the rundown or the synopsis that I believe in. So um, the issue that exists right now is that 90% of all events, if not 100%, are all reliant on a hotel to provide the event space. And so because you're running the event at a hotel, they're going to request that you have to guarantee a certain number of rooms sold in order to get that room for free. And then, you have to pay all the food and beverage and stuff too, which is, whatever. But the rooms is really the tricky part for a lot of these conferences, because what we're doing essentially is that we're sticking our necks out and saying, I'm willing to sign this contract for thousands of dollars, and I'm willing to bet that I can get enough people to stay in your hotel and come to my event to kind of handle that. These hybrid events, the reason why they're challenging right now is that no one has really agreed, I guess if you want to call it. They haven't agreed as to the price structure. So like most attendees will moan and complain about, I don't want to pay full price for an event if I'm going to go hybrid. I'm going to attend virtually. I don't feel like I need to pay for all of the food and beverage and everything else that goes into the show, right? Because I'm not there. So that would dictate that the virtual ticket should be less expensive, which I can kind of see that. The problem is for these shows is that by having a cheaper virtual ticket, it means that you're going to have more virtual people attend, which can be a good thing, except for a couple different issues. One of them is the hotels. So like you're going to have to potentially wheel and deal with the hotel and get less committed room nights, to kind of figure out how many people might come. Like, is it a 60-40 split, or is it like a 70-30 or a 80-20? So you'll have to somehow figure that out, which is not in my bag of tricks that I have. And then the secondary thing is like, okay, well, you've got these people that are coming to this event, but there's only 20 or 30% of them. What are the sponsors getting out of that? Are the sponsors getting really what they paid for? And so now the sponsors are like, well, I'm not willing to pay your price if I'm only going to see 20% of these people. I need more. And so what is that more? Is it, the full list of attendees, virtual and physical, or is it, something else? I don't really know. There's like a really big gray area right now that exists for that. And so, I don't personally think that I'll ever run a hybrid event. We have done virtual, and the virtuals are great, but they're always lacking something. And that's either the ability to speak to the speakers, or to network with people. Like I've seen some of these virtual shows where it's just like a bomb of people trying to sell shit. And it's just like,
Yep.
What am I getting out of this chat? Nothing. So there's a lot of challenges with that. I personally think that events, and I hate to say this, but I think events need to make a standpoint of saying that there's a certain percentage that a virtual ticket should cost and what a real ticket should cost. And I don't think that it's going to benefit the virtual attendee at all. But in order for the show to go on, I think that has to happen, because as a show, we run on such paper thin margins that having an extra 10% go from physical to virtual could mean thousands of dollars in rooms that we have to pay for that we didn't know about. And so that could completely train wreck your event. So it's challenging, man. I hate this job. I hate it.
You're running a conference means sitting back and counting your money.
Yeah, you would think so, right? Like I had one of those machines like, oh, look, $1 million. That would be nice.
I do know a few people who are running less of conferences and more of large masterminds.
Yeah.
They've created, like you did in Maui,
Yeah.
or interesting event. I know one of my former clients just ran a 3-day event in Nashville.
Nice.
And they were, it was a $6,000 ticket to attend.
Whew.
And he lost money with 200 attendees.
Whoa.
But he was okay with that. He was willing to take the hit to do the event, knowing that, for him, he's got a future revenue angle with these masterminds, which I understand. But he was willing to take the hit. But I'm looking at that going, okay, 200 people times $6,000. That is a lot of money to still lose money on.
Mm-hmm.
But
it can be
then again,
challenging.
he was downtown Nashville. So,
Yeah, I mean, the venue location really determines a lot of that. So again, if you're at a hotel, you're going to run into hotel issues regardless. 200 people it's bigger than our Napa show. So I'm just thinking, like, even if I was to expand it to 200, you're still talking about busing people. Like I'll give you an example. So the buses to run from the hotel up to the castle and back for one night is somewhere around $4,000. So it's like one night's worth of buses is $4,000. So that's a lot of money. But how else are they going to get to the castle, right? Well, you could say, oh, well, they'll all just have their rental cars. Well, okay, they'll have rental cars. They could get to the castle. But what happens once they get drunk or have a little bit too much and they're on a dark, windy road going back to the hotel at 10:30 at night? For me, it's peace of mind, making sure that the attendees are taken care of. And also it keeps everyone together. I've heard some pretty interesting stories about the bus rides up to the castle, but people tend to have a lot of fun. So, there's things like that will always kind of plague us. The masterminds that we run, like the one in Scottsdale this November, we're limiting it to I think 24 or 25 people. There's 4 seats left in it. If we fill it up, great. And if we don't, that's fine too. We'll be at cash neutral for the event, which is perfectly fine for us. But it's really challenging to have more than 25. It's almost like you have to go up in increments. So like, the reason why it's 25 or 24, that's exactly the amount of people that'll fit in a Sprinter van. So I'm getting 2 Sprinter vans. That's going to be the way that we go back and forth. Anything larger than that, now you're talking about a bus or 4 or 5 Sprinter vans, which just means more bodies that we have to have in order to drive those cars, or, again, rent out the service, the limo service or whatever. So there's challenges with having them at certain sizes. And like, as an example, the Napa show, there's no way that we could go over 200. It would be way too challenging to do all of the stuff that we want to do, like taking over a winery or having falconry or staying at the castle. All of these things have size limits. And I think that once you start to bridge those gaps and go over, you wind up having a traditional cookie cutter show, which is what we want to avoid at all costs. Yeah. It's too banquety, and I hate banquets. So
along that line, we're starting to run a little long on the show. Tell us about the Napa conference and what you guys are doing. How much room's left? Let's see if we can fill that up.
That'll be sweet. So our Napa show is March 28th through 30th of 2023. It's going to be held in beautiful Napa Valley, as the name would suggest. It's an advanced conference, so we tend to attract people that have been in the industry for 5+ years, and they really come from all walks of life. Some of them are agency owners, SEOs that are in-house, independent contractors. And, there's a handful of owners that are there as well, where they just own a business and they're looking to try to get to the next level for their business. So we do have some of those, and large agencies too, from like New York City. There's a couple of those as well. We have 3 speakers so far, and I think most of the people who are listening to this podcast probably know them. So we've got Lily Ray. She's going to be coming in Napa, so that'll be awesome to have her as one of our main keynotes. We've got Patrick Stocks from Ahrefs. He's so warm and cuddly. I love him so much. But long longtime SEO, knows his shit backwards and forwards. And then the last one that we have picked so far is Cindy Crum. And Cindy has also been a longtime friend and industry expert. So we love that we have some of these names so far. We're trying to build, I would say, the best lineup that we've ever had this year. Well, for 2023. So hopefully you guys can join us. If you're interested in attending, just go to digitalmarketers.org. You can find the events there. If you're interested in filling out and becoming a speaker, you can do that as well. We're always looking for highly qualified speakers for our events, and we are picking them right now. So if anyone is interested, great. We also, again, we have Scottsdale. There's 4 more seats for that as well. If you're interested in coming to the Sonoran Desert in November, we would love to have you there as well. It's a little bit of a different event. So yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. You can always reach out to me via Digital Marketers or hit us up on Facebook.
Outstanding. Sounds like a good time.
It is.
I'd love to make the Napa one. I haven't been to Napa since we left California.
Gotta
it's been
go.
a long time. Yeah, I need to convince my wife that I gotta go.
I think we have something like 97 tickets left. I think we had like 3 or 4 sell over the last couple of weeks, but we do have super early bird pricing in effect right now. So if you want to get it as cheap as you can, tickets are $15.99, and they won't get any less expensive. So get them while they're hot.
Perfect.
I got another question for you, Jim.
Sure.
Talking about concepts of conferences and where they may go. Have you got rattling around in the back of that cute little head of yours some sort of a different idea for something you might do sometime in terms of a conference or experience?
Yeah, well, TJ only lets me go so far because some of the ideas that I have are pretty far out there. But I'll give you an example of something that we did and something that we are looking to do again. So one of the things that we did was a campsite. We've determined that having some sort of a campsite is not ideal when the weather is not very good. So we will more than likely be returning to Flagstaff at some point in time, and we will be renting out a house and, doing some stargazing and some other kind of foresty camping type of events in the future. And we're also looking to travel as well. So some of these things might just be an Airbnb for a weekend where we just rent them out. It'll be a really nice house, and it'll be in an area where, there's a lot of us around. So something like I don't know, Chicago or a Nashville, or maybe Oregon, or Bourbon Trail. We might do that as well. So I would look for more of those type of smaller events, just because it's easier for us to have. And also just I think a overall more experiential kind of thing for people to attend. So more of that in the future is just going to be coming down the pipes. Is just more experiences for people, more memorable things.
Well, I think you hit on something that is likely going to be copycatted a lot.
They can try. It's really challenging. I'm not gonna. Cookie cutter events are like a pipe dream. They're so easy to pull off in comparison. But constantly dealing with different vendors all the time is really, really challenging. So I wish them the best if they would like to do that. But chances are you need someone crazy like myself in order to figure out where you're going to have these things. So,
and you're really fortunate in having TJ because he brings a lot of experience in event planning to the table. So
yeah, he does. The Comic-Con stuff really has come in handy. So I will not discount that at all, even though he's not here.
Even though you're not speaking.
Yeah, we're not speaking. I'll speak to him when he gets back on Sunday.
And you guys are such a cute couple too. That's a shame.
I know. It's okay. I got Arson. He'll fill in for right now.
There you go.
Well, cool. If you guys have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Steve?
I'm impressed that you guys have been able to put on so many good shows in a row.
Thanks.
without having, I mean, every conference seems like there's always a group that just goes online and throws a fit.
Yeah.
And we've never seen that with any of yours, which is very
I hope
rare.
not. I'm
Well,
not looking for them. That's for sure.
I mean, for some reason, I tend to attract drama, and I tend to see it all as it happens, which is weird, but okay. And the DMO events are simply not something that where I've ever seen that. Everybody is always thrilled and excited to go, which is outstanding.
I can't wait for the next one. Yeah.
I think there's two reasons for that. I mean, generally speaking, it's kind of like I'm just cool. I don't like drama, and I don't like to piss on people's parade. So maybe that's part of it, where it's just like, hey, if you want to come to one of our events, just be cool, because everyone else is cool, and we don't want any more drama than what needs to be. So there's that aspect of it, I think, where we just kind of squash it just in general. We're also open and eager for everyone to come and experience what we have to offer. So I think that there's just a quality difference in the events that we try to pull off. And I think that there's a detractor, and sometimes because of the cost of it, but I think once you have come to one of our events, it's very, very clear and apparent why we are the way that we are. And it's a close-knit family, which is really what we want people to feel when they come to our events. So
Love it.
You too should come.
Yeah, because that atmosphere is definitely a big part of the memory.
Yeah. Well, in every event that I've ever done, the memory or the experience that people bring home is the number one focus. Everyone can have speakers. Lily and Patrick and Cindy have spoken at countless events, but how many of those events do people remember? There's probably very, very few of them. They'll remember ours because it's attached to other things that are fun. So I think that's where we shine and where we're different.
Well, Jim, really appreciate you joining us today.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate you guys having me on. Anytime. Let me know. I can talk for hours. Problem.
Not a problem at all. That's the best part about doing these things, is getting to chat with people that we find entertaining and enjoy spending time with.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I could agree with that 100%.
Well, again, thank you. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it to one of your shows anytime soon, but
well, you're always welcome.
There are only a very small handful of conferences or shows out there that I have any interest in attending, and DMO's stuff is definitely at the top of the list.
Sweet. We always love hearing that.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And
get back to counting your millions now.
Yeah. I'll let you know. All
right. We'll see everyone on the next show.
Bye, guys.